I want to start off this video by thanking black women for their commitment to democracy and the Constitution of the United States of America. Hello and welcome back to Bookish. And like many of you who watch my channel, and maybe some of you who don't, I was really shocked and dismayed by the results of the election 2024 and Trump winning re-election. And like many people, I fell into, a kind of a period of high anxiety and worry and concern about the future of the country. And I was talking to Sean from Sean Breathes Books the other day about a video we were doing. In that video, I said that when I'm feeling really anxious, I always work from the inside out. I worry about my family directly and how this is going to affect us and how this is going to, what consequences we might suffer. And, really quickly, and my wife helped remind me of this, really quickly I was reminded, despite my continued anxiety about the election, the direction the country's heading, that people who look like me and people who are the gender that I am are the least likely people to be affected by what Trump does in a direct, harmful way. And if I'm feeling the kind of anxiety that I feel, it's unimaginable to me the kind of anxiety and fear and concern and nonstop worry that people from other groups are feeling, whether that's Black, Hispanic, LGBTQ plus, any of those groups are bound to be feeling more uneasy and more anxious, and not without good reason, because certainly Trump's rhetoric and the rhetoric of people who he surrounds himself with make him seem like a direct threat to all those people. But there's one group of people who for the last 3 election cycles have overwhelmingly voted to protect themselves and protect others and to protect the Constitution and protect our democracy, and that's black women. You may have seen this stat, this graph, which I'll put up over here. It's possible that my version of the graph has changed a little bit over time. It might be a little early, but one of the things that graph shows is about 90% of all black women voted for Kamala Harris. Okay, 90% of all black women voted for Kamala Harris, around 80% of all black men voted for Kamala Harris, and so on. I see a lot of stuff on the news media today about how, Hispanic men elected Donald Trump president. That's not true. Hispanic men make up about 6 to 7% of the United States population, as do black men. And the vote of black men canceled out the impact or the effect of the vote of Hispanic men. Okay? So all of that is just a whole bunch of malarkey and a whole bunch of rigmarole. But let me repeat myself. 90% of black women voted for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump. In other words, those 90% of black women saw the threat that Trump posed to our democracy and posed themselves and posed to other vulnerable groups in the United States of America, and they emphatically said no. Now, when I said that out loud, if your automatic thought was, well, of course black women voted for Kamala Harris, she's a black woman. They voted for her because she's a black woman and they're black women. Let me point out something to you. In the same election, 59% of white men voted for Donald Trump. Did they vote for Donald Trump because he's a white man? 52% of white women voted for Donald Trump. Did they vote for Trump because he's white? If you're going to say that black women voted for Kamala Harris because she's black, then you have to accept, don't you, that white people voted for Donald Trump because he's white? And if you don't, then you're basically saying that you're a racist. Because what you're saying is that black women vote based solely on emotion and identifying with the person they're voting for, but white people don't do that. White people look at issues, and white people, are concerned about other things, and the economy, and all these other things were worrying white people. And so it wasn't Donald Trump's race that made white people vote for him. It was all these other issues. So, for instance, people would bring up the economy. That's a big one. The economy and inflation. People have a negative view of the economy right now. That's fair. You can have that negative view. And you hear people all the time talk about, the cost of a gallon of gas and the price of a dozen eggs. Let me ask you, are black women not buying gas and eggs? They're buying gas and eggs at the same prices that white people are. And yet they went out and voted not for Donald Trump, but for Kamala Harris. We hear a lot of people talking about the immigration issue. Are black women not concerned about illegal immigration? Is that something only white people are worried about? That sounds kind of racist to me. So clearly that can't really be it. That can't explain it. White people aren't more worried about immigration, unless they're being worried for racist reasons, than black women are. What about this whole Gaza thing? I see a lot of young people saying, that Harris alienated young voters because she kind of backed Biden's position on Gaza. Maybe, but do black women not care about the people in Gaza? If you think that, black people in the United States of America don't identify with the Palestinians in Gaza, you need to do more reading on civil rights history, my friends, because you don't know what you're talking about. So on all these issues that people are spending all this time looking at, and why did she lose, and what's happened, and where did the Democratic Party go wrong, let me just point out that on none of those issues are black women not affected by those things in the same way, if not more, than white men and women. And yet black women went out and voted for Kamala Harris and not Donald Trump. So if both sides, if both black women and white men and women are equally worried about those three big issues, what is it that made white people vote for Donald Trump? Why did, almost 60% of white men vote for Donald Trump this year? Why did, more than 50% of white men and women vote for Donald Trump last time? Why did more than 50% of white men and women vote for Donald Trump the time before? And if black women were only voting for Kamala Harris because she was a black woman, how do you explain that 89% of black women voted for Joe Biden? You don't get a much whiter white man than Joe Biden. I mean, hell, the guy wrote the 96 crime bill, which we all know had devastating racist impact on black people in the United States of America, and yet they still went out and voted for him because they knew the threat that Trump posed to the United States of America. So I know what you're thinking, well, you're just calling all white people racist. I'm not. I'm asking you to think about why you think the white people in your life voted for Donald Trump, keeping in mind what I just said. And by the way, can I just point out that Donald Trump's solution to the problem of high grocery bills are tariffs? How are tariffs going to lower your grocery bill? His solution to the problem of high food costs is to deport millions of people who work in the farming industry? How is that going to lower your food cost? So pardon me if I think that all that thing about the cost of eggs, the cost of gas, and lowering food prices is just cover that a lot of white people are using to disguise the fact that they didn't want to vote for a black woman. They may not be overt racist, they may not be racist who hide their racism behind resentment. They may be subconsciously racist to be as kind as we can possibly be, but that doesn't mean race isn't the reason. Everybody's looking for the reason, and I'm telling you right now, race is the reason. Race with a healthy dose of misogyny is the reason. You had a lot of white people who are going to vote for Donald Trump because they heard the racist dog whistles, where he's talking about Kamala Harris being low IQ. The woman that graduated from law school, she's not low IQ. About her being unqualified. She's a United States Senator, and for 4 years, she's the Vice President of the United States. She has the qualifications. You heard him joke about her being pimped out by other people, implying that she's a prostitute and making that connection. All those vile racist statements that Trump made, those resonated with what I think are probably the right at the just below the surface level racist white voters in the United States of America, and they overwhelmingly went out and voted for Trump. There are also those white people in the United States of America, young, old, middle class, who have a lot of resentment towards people who they feel like, who I say they're afraid are taking over, who are growing more prominent. And these are kind of people who have white resentment. They're afraid of all these groups of people taking power, or having power, or being exercised some influence. And I think Trump appealed to them as well, as though, these people are replacing you. These people are, a threat to your way of life. These people are a threat to American and American greatness. And then I think they're just the people who just whatever below the surface level was, they just could not bring themselves to vote for a black woman over a white man, even a white man who they knew is a convicted felon, who they knew a jury has found liable for sexual assault, who they knew defrauded the charity, who they knew tried to overthrow the United States government. By the way, goodbye to all of that. Goodbye to the rule of law when we elected Donald Trump president. Okay, goodbye to saying we respect the rule of law here, because clearly white people in the United States of America don't. That they'll vote for a white man over a black woman no matter what. Because that's really what we got. And one reason why I think they could so confidently go out and cast those votes against Kamala Harris and cast those votes for Donald Trump is because when they look at Trump's policies, when they look at what Trump talks about, they don't think they're the ones who are going to be hurt. They're not the ones who are going to be deported. They're not the ones who are going to run the risk from, national stop and frisk like black men will. They're not the ones who are going to risk seeing their benefits cut when, we put Elon Musk in charge of slashing the budget by trillions of dollars. They don't see themselves being hurt by those policies, so they think, well, what he says is okay with me because it's not going to affect me. Notice black women don't vote that way. Black women vote for what's best for the country. They vote for the rule of law. They vote for the Constitution. They vote in support of other women. They vote in, support of economic policies that benefit people near the bottom and in the middle and not at the very top. So again, just let me repeat my thanks to black women for voting to save the United States of America. And let me challenge you and myself and everyone around us who sees this video to help them save the United States of America over the next 4 years. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.